This is lovely. It's like a little bonsai.
Yeah, yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? I love that.
See, we've got.
Look at that. That's tremendous. That side branch.
To me, we've got these. The greens look a little more tender, a little more.
Yeah.
That's spectacular. Yeah, brilliant.
But what's nice as well, when I mentioned this the other day, you've got the larches behind now, so you've got like a yellow. There's a yellow in the mist behind the trees.
But it's also guided through by these yellows on the leaves as well.
Yeah.
It's very pastel-y, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things you often get accused of photoshopping things with things like that. But I think it's, if you look at things with a postage stamp size crop with your eyesight and your mind's eye, then you can see this idea of abstracts. Maybe that's where a lot of painters get that from. The idea that woodland photography is chaotic, and that's why it's difficult. There's always something I've struggled to get my head around, really, because that's precisely what I like about it.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of walking really slowly in woodland, so that you can, you have time for you to process the way that the composition changes anywhere that you're looking.
Yeah.
And Mark Littlejohn said about the Channel 4 logo back in the day, when the camera sort of pans around it, it doesn't make any sense until a certain point where everything clicks and you see the letter 4.
Yeah.
And actually woodland photography is a lot like that. It's just a shameless rip-off of one of Mark's analogies there. But every time it's like that. And if something's not working, just moving a metre to the right or the metre to the left can give you an entirely different composition. And whether that's good or not, who knows? But you just know, oftentimes, when you're walking really slowly, something will click. And actually, oftentimes, you don't really know what it is about it that clicks. But trusting your instinct that you know something about what you're looking at is right.
Yeah, and it's mostly in your peripheral vision. It's not what you're actually looking at. And I remember discussing with some workshop clients what I call the 1,000-yard stare. If you can defocus the foreground and focus through the woodland to the back of it, so that effectively everything in front of you is in essence abstracted. All you need to do as you're moving, you can feel those relationships with the trees. You're out looking at them, even in your peripheral vision. Even right out here right now, I can feel these kind of gaps between trees opening up, narrowing, and you can so you get a sense of composition out with the 15% of your vision that's actually focusing. And I think that's actually what I do when I'm in the woods, because otherwise it can overwhelm you. So it's often what's in your subconscious vision rather than what you're really looking at any point. There's quite a few gifts I think that large format brought me, one of which is, because you can't get the camera out and just look straight through it, you've got to build it. You learn to see yourself without having to look through a viewfinder. And I used to carry cards around, like a 5x4 inch piece, it had an aperture in it, a 5x4, and you could hold that then and view through it, and you can do it with a slide mount. But I was tempted to bring one out actually, because you can use that then just as a viewfinder. And you've seen me work, so you know that I don't tend to wander around with a camera in my hand. But are
you not tempted to bring that viewfinder thing these days? Or?
Yeah. Well, I'll say I've got lots of slide mounts at home from 35mm slides, and now I'm shooting effectively 35mm again. That'd be the perfect thing. The distance from your eye is the focal length that you want to kind of create your compositions with. But so you're looking. I've learned to completely ignore everything but that little point in the distance, and so you're already composing without having to use a viewfinder in any way, really.
God, that light's beautiful. It's like a temperature chart, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Unreal.
Absolutely.
That direct light, and also I reckon it's probably bouncing and diffracting off.
You can see the warm light melting into this side, and it fades to blue probably about 50 metres out. That's
the thing. Some of my favourite images are like that, where they have that graduation of colour.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so we're talking about the idea of trusting your instinct as well. I think that's something that's sort of, well, it's kind of ever evolving, but something I'm trying to really nurture and trying to hold on to. It's quite an abstract thing, but just being able to trust your instinct that you know something, even if you don't identify it on the spot. Oftentimes, it's one of the great things about modern photography is that you can get back and look at things in the comfort of your home, and then sort of see what you saw on the day. There's something particularly gratifying about making images in Shropshire, because of that, the very nature of the fact that you have to work for it.
Yeah.
And it's almost its own gatekeeper. And I think if something does require kind of self-determination, well, a lot of determination to achieve and to uncover, then the rewards are much greater. And also, there's a comforting and distinct lack of honeypots, talking of which.
Yeah, that is beautiful. I'll have to take a still of that.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
Yeah. So one of the problems here is that the path up on Hopesey Common that's coming up out of the mist literally leads your eye straight out of the frame. It's interesting actually how viewers will often jump onto a physical path in an image. You know, it's one of the reasons you photograph things like this. If you photograph along a path, it draws the eye right the way through. And if you've got a path which takes you out of the frame, it literally, it's like people, it'd be just like lemmings, people jumping off cliffs. You know, photography for me is primarily about exploring, discovering, and I think being relatively underexposed as a location, as a county, it's brought a whole lot of opportunities, you know, so I think the relatively low density of population within the county means that when you arrive on top of a hill, effectively you're looking over what looks like completely empty.
Ooh, that's mine. Yeah, and we spoke before about the fact that these things, because they're walking up, you're kind of you're treading on fresh ground a lot photographically, because there's very little photo record of Shropshire that's anything meaningful anyway. So a lot of these things are they're very rarely photographed. God, that's incredible. Isn't that quite surreal? And that scene there, it's not quite popping, but cool. Yeah, it's worth stopping.
I think for me, there's always another hill beyond the hill you're on, and that's what's appealed to me in Scotland. You climb a mountain, and there's always another mountain.
Yeah.
And here, you know, what have we got? We've got Barrow Hill, and then we've got Hopesey Common. And when you arrive on top of Hopesey Common, you've got whatever the next hill is beyond that over Edgerton Way, and then you're on the southern end of the Mind. And you know, if you look west, you can see right into Wales, all the way to Cadair Idris, and all there is between you and there is just layer upon layer upon layer of hills, and most of those haven't been visited and photographed.
Yeah.
You know, they'll all be walked. They'll all be, you know, this morning on the way here, there's just loads and loads of people out with dogs.
Yeah.
You know, already walking their dogs, and so these are all local dog walks. They're not honeypot photographic destinations.
I think it's interesting how the honeypot thing has taken off in direct proportion to social media.
Yes.
As before, you had to actually go out and buy a book, and then you had to look on an OS map and estimate where it is and all of that kind of thing. Now it's very easy. People are doing everything falling short of an actual map reference. Well, in some cases, I've seen photographers put map reference points of where the thing.
Exactly, and there are 2 or 3 book, publishing companies now that specifically bring out books, encouraging people to go to.
Yeah.
certain locations. Any book that's a guide to a place for photographers is guaranteed to make all of those locations mentioned popular.
Yeah, and redundant.
Yes. yeah. Very quickly.
Yeah. Look at that.
Look at it down this valley.
Yeah, yeah. A right angle and wrong angle for the stuff, and it's a very instinctual thing that it's a difficult thing to explain, but you know it when you see it.
But there also isn't a definitive right angle, because that it's subjective as well. So
it's right to you, isn't it?
It's what's right to you, and there are subtle. I mean, there are obvious disastrous compositions to be made, and there are obvious really fantastic ones. But the subtleties within that I would liken it to being the same as the number of notes that actually occur between semitones on an instrument. There's a lot more tones in between, and so what one person sees, and that subtle change that in the composition that, you know, to a way that someone else would see it, it isn't what neither one are right or wrong. That's the thing.
Well, you know, it's interesting, isn't it, that we just spent a lot of time talking about things that are typically Shropshire, and actually, I don't know, this is like quite unique.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess this is not atypical for this particular part of Shropshire. Whoa, look at this. Look at this.
This is Shropshire. I think this is what we got to. This is Shropshire.
Yeah.
Oh, that is beautiful. That right in front of us there. So what we can see is 10 miles, probably more than that, right over to Clee Hill. So that's Brown Clee, isn't it? You can see the radio mast, Titterton Clee in the distance, which looks taller for some reason than Brown Clee right now. I'm guessing it's just a bit closer, maybe. But anyway, it's the layers. It's the way the landscape just flows on and on and on. And when you've got mist in like this, then that really accentuates it and lifts it to another level.
Gives it a depth, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it does look. Yeah, it has a sort of flat look to it, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
then you know, go to the top of a mountain, stand on top of a mountain, and take a landscape across Loch Arbour, for example, or North Argyll, and you know the mountains I know and love that there. And all you've got is the tops as far as the eye can see. But then you get a bit of mist into the valleys, and it separates them out, and you realise that you're actually probably looking 20 miles. And you can pick out and name all the hills in between. That's something I've always enjoyed doing anyway, just be able to identify. It grounds you where you are if you can identify everything else. So you know, beyond Brown Clee, you can see some more landscape beyond that. Going on that journey physically, or travelling with the eye, or making an image, and then allowing other people to experience that and go on that same journey, I think is you know, it's a nice gift.
Well, there's a Phileas Fogg element to it, isn't it? I think that's something that's always excited me, is bringing things. Bringing things to people. I don't know. There's probably a small degree of narcissism and ego with that as well, but I think there is with most forms of art. Just having a. You see, I've always the difference between just standing and seeing something and actually standing and capturing something in perpetuity. For something that's resonated far more with me, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a bit abstract, the idea of getting out of bed and kind of putting yourself through early starts and going out carrying heavy amounts of stuff and getting freezing cold and all that kind of stuff. But it's just the payoff is so great, and I personally never feel happier and more content and more relaxed than when either on a hillside or particularly walking through a wood.
No, I agree, and it's amazing how often. You know, you can feel very reluctant. You can making that decision. Oh, I'll get up and I'll go out, and you're not necessarily feeling particularly positive about it. But it very quickly changes your frame of mind the minute you're out there. Even grinding your way up a hill, you straight away. Yes, there's a bit of exercise involved, but you're immersing yourself straight away, aren't you? I think that's part of it. It's
the peace of mind as well, isn't it?
It's more important to me than actually the capturing of an image.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't want to go without a camera. I wouldn't want to just go for a walk because
that's the analogy though. I remember Michael Holding saying that he used to go fishing without any bait because of, you know, it's a means to an end. It's a conduit for the idea and for itself.
Yeah.